After Omega's younger brother fled from his wedding, I, as an alpha, disguised myself as an Omega and married the general. In order to incite his disdain, I provocatively teased him, wrapping my arms around his neck. What do you say to having a child with me? Do you prefer a little alpha or a little Omega? Eventually, when the truth came to light, he confined me to the bedroom. Weren't you the one who said you would bear me a child? Now show me. 01 When I learned of Omega's younger brother's impending elopement, I was indulging in the revelry of a bar, a den of debauchery, a carnival of desires. Here, some sought to unleash their primal urges, while others engaged in clandestine dealings. Yet, there were those like me who came simply to revel. I casually wrapped my arm around the waist of a petite Omega, who leaned against me, whispering in awe, "Young Master Lu, your waist is even slimmer than ours." I tilted my head, my warm breath grazing his earlobe, eliciting a blush upon his cheeks. "Is that a compliment?" "Absolutely," he replied, his youthful face tinged with crimson. "If you were an Omega, there would be no need for us." I chuckled softly, "But I am an alpha, alas." The Omega nestled within my embrace was playful, while another Omega nearby was less composed, his restless hand reaching toward my suppressor patch. I subtly raised an eyebrow, and just as his fingertips brushed against the patch, I seized his hand. The Omega's face paled. "Young Master Lu, I placed my index finger gently over his lips, signaling for silence, accompanied by a teasing smile. "Be good, little one, do not be too greedy. Some top-tier alphas can be quite lethal when provoked." The Omega's face flushed deeper as he lowered his gaze. "Young Master Lu, I won't dare next time." I affectionately tousled his tousled hair. "Now that's more like it." At that moment, the butler approached me, whispering in my ear, "Young Master Lu, young Master Jinshi has fled his wedding." 02 I leaned against the window, lighting a cigarette. The smoke curled slowly upwards, my expression inscrutable. I let out a mocking laugh. "Are you suggesting I take Lu Jinshi's place as Huasi's Omega? He is hardly worthy." The butler averted his gaze, hesitant to respond. "Young Master Lu, it is merely a charade. Once we retrieve young Master Jinshi, you may deal with him as you see fit. Currently, the Lu family's goods are still in the hands of this general. If we were to turn hostile now..." I flicked the ash from my cigarette, my irritation bubbling. I had never met Huasi, only crossed paths with him twice. Once when he seized my goods, and I retaliated by destroying his dock, and another time when I bribed him only to be extorted in return. Such a man harbors a vengeful spirit. He is not to be trifled with. If possible, I wish to avoid a third encounter with him for the rest of my life. I extinguished my cigarette. "When?" The butler bowed respectfully. "The carriage from the Hor residence is already outside the Lu estate." 03 Huasi, a young general, exudes an air of arrogance. He detests those who are overly sentimental and clingy. The simplest way to conceal my alpha identity from him is to ensure he finds me repugnant, even unworthy of his touch. Thus, when he entered, I leapt onto him, my legs wrapping around his firm waist. Caught off guard, he instinctively caught me, his gaze falling down to my thin blouse, the contours of my body unmistakable. His expression faltered for a moment, his hand on my waist stiffening, but he quickly regained his composure, his voice cold and hard. "Lu Jinshi, you should let me down." I tilted my head, feigning ignorance. "What? Did you not marry me to continue your lineage? Mr. Hua, how about I bear you a child? Do you prefer a little alpha or a little Omega?" As expected, a flicker of disdain crossed Huasi's eyes. "I have no interest in having children. To think you would use a child to bind me, your family's ambitions are rather blatant." Huasi's reaction was even more pronounced than I anticipated. Truly, I am a master of provocation. Hence, I decided to stoke the flames further, wrapping my arms around his neck and teasing him playfully. "But I genuinely like you, Mr. Hua. From the moment we first met, I was smitten. If you were to reject me, I might just wither away heartbroken." Huasi lowered his gaze, his lips parting coolly. "Then your affections are rather cheap." "I am not concerned. Get off me." "Cheap?" I had no desire to serve him. I pouted, then scrambled down from him. In my descent, I must have kicked him somewhere, as he let out a soft grunt, his face paling. "Lu Jinshi." I darted away, faster than a rabbit. 04 I spent several days confined to my room. When I ventured out for water, I happened to lock eyes with a young alpha sitting in the hall below, his gaze revealing a hint of admiration. I had heard of him, Huasi's cousin, Huasun. Huasun tugged at Huasi's sleeve. "Brother, is this the Omega from the Lu family?" He is truly beautiful. Huasii did not even glance up. You say that about every Omega. Huasun exclaimed. He is different. He is the most stunning Omega I have ever seen. Brother, since you are not interested in him, why not let him come with me? I cast a fleeting glance from my elevated position, feeling a chill sweep over me. Huasi's voice turned icy, as if Huasun desired merely a stranger. I have no authority to decide for others. Huasun approached me, his eyes shining. Lu Jinshi, right? You look exquisite. Why are you with my brother, that ice-cold face? Come with me. I will treat you well. I was lamenting my inability to escape this den of wolves. I casually draped my hands over his shoulders. Sounds good. Huasi's hand holding the newspaper paused slightly. I mimicked the behavior of an Omega, placing my hands on Huasun's waist. How shall we play? Huasun, taken aback by my enthusiastic response, gleefully took my hand and led me out. Brother, I am taking him with me. I want to return him. However, as we passed Huasii, he suddenly grasped my arm, his long, cold fingers gripping painfully. I bit my tongue to suppress my outburst. Huasii, what are you doing? Huasi's eyes brimmed with cold fury. Lu Jinshi, did you not proclaim yesterday your love for me until death? Is there someone who believes flirtatious banter? If every Omega demanded I take responsibility for casual flirtations, I might as well perish multiple times over. I pondered. Could he be genuinely sincere instead of merely pretending? Thus, I smiled softly, leaning closer to him, my lips nearly brushing his rigid face, teasingly murmuring, I did say that, but my affections are so cheap. Fickleness is rather commonplace, no? Mr. Hua, one must be careful when wooing an Omega. Otherwise, they might stray overnight. Huasii remained unmoved, merely pursing his lips, leaning in closer to whisper, Lu Jinshi, your family's goods remain in my possession. Don't you dare use that as leverage. After weighing the pros and cons, I released my grip on Huasun's hand, letting out a slight sound of regret. Alas, I am the sort of person who craves novelty and easily tires of the familiar. I yearn for fresh experiences. Rather than being your Omega, I would much prefer to see Huasii kneeling before me, singing Conquer. Huasun, unfazed, seemed rather eager, though I am unsure of the source of your confidence. The day my brother kneels to sing Conquer, you must call me. I will ensure the video is played on loop across all major platforms. I followed Huasii into the room with purposeful strides. Just as he attempted to close the door, I seized the opportunity to push him onto the bed. Surprise flickered in his eyes, swiftly replaced by anger. You Omega, has no one ever taught you the meaning of shame? Finally, we were past the curt commands of get down or leave, though not by much. What of an Omega who is carefree? I revel in such wildness. The wilder, the better. My initial intent was to lift my leg and wedge it between his, challenging him, don't touch my goods. If you have the guts, come at me. However, under the circumstances, I opted for a softer approach. I wrapped my arms around his neck, positioning myself atop him, deliberately loosening my shirt collar to reveal the alluring curve of my collarbone.
UOCS gas flickered.
Lu Jinshi, what are you doing? How amusing. Using goods to bait me and then questioning my purpose? Was it for the goods, or was it for the person? I feigned difficulty and nuzzled closer to him. My brother asked me to inquire about the goods from the Lu family. Huasi's lips curled into a cold smile, revealing a look that said as expected. He raised his finger to poke my chest. You are well aware of the contraband among your family's goods. Relay this to Lu Wang. Other items will be released according to regulations, but he should abandon any thoughts of the contraband. I lowered my eyelashes, letting out a soft chuckle. Hey! No need to relay. Lu Wang was already informed. Lu Wang had heard everything. At this moment, he was only thinking of murder. Damn Huasii, how ruthless. 3 whole crates of firearms just like that. Heaven knows the effort it took to acquire them. My fingertip grazed Huasi's throat, casually pondering. Such a pronounced Adam's apple. Would it be better to slice it horizontally or vertically? Huasii was clearly stirred, his breath quickening, the tips of his ears gradually reddening. He turned his head away, refusing to look at me. Get down. If I must, then I complied, rolling off him. However, my mind raced with thoughts of how to dismantle Huasii piece by piece. To my surprise, he pulled my arm, drawing me back into his embrace. He bit his lip nervously, turning his gaze away. You will sleep here. I will take the study. Then, as if fleeing, he dashed out of the room. Hua's servant approached me, informing me that Huasi wished to see me. I assumed he had changed his mind and whistled as I entered the room. However, upon stepping inside, I sensed a dangerous yet familiar aura in the air, spotting Huasi in the corner, an alpha in his sensitive period. Huasi's pheromones inundated the space. Realizing the precariousness of the situation, I nearly bolted for the door, only to find it locked from the outside. The servant likely intended for me to soothe Huasi with my pheromones, but it had backfired. For a top-tier alpha in a sensitive period, omega pheromones are comforting, while the scent of a strange alpha is nothing short of provocation, igniting a terrifying surge in the alpha's sensitivity. Huasi's eyes reddened, akin to a beast defending its territory, his voice hoarse. "Get out." I shrugged my shoulders helplessly. "The door's locked. I can't leave. Perhaps you could endure a moment?" Huasi gasped for breath, his hands gripping my hair. The two powerful alpha pheromones clashed in the confined space, both rife with intense rejection and a desire for dominance, neither willing to yield. Suddenly, Huasi's pheromones erupted like a volcano, causing my legs to weaken. I nearly fell, but he pressed me against the wall. An ominous premonition washed over me. "Huasi, you..." He lowered his head, capturing my lips with a heated kiss, silencing my whimpers within my mouth. I found an unexpected surge of strength, shoving him away. Breathing heavily, I gritted my teeth. "Huasi, make no mistake. I am not an omega. I am an alpha, and I am your ancestor." At my words,
UOCS fingé hésitated momentarily.
Then, with renewed vigor, he gripped my waist, his insistent kisses falling like rain, his dominant pheromones flowing unabated from my glands. Although an alpha cannot be marked by another alpha, the pain of being marked is very real, akin to being nailed to a pillar of shame, a constant reminder of my status as an alpha, yet subjugated beneath another alpha. 3 days later, I emerged from that room, my back aching as if it would snap. Initially, Huasi's pheromones had begun to suppress mine, and I was on the verge of escape. However, that lunatic Huasi, sensing something amiss, had injected himself with an alpha inducement agent, prolonging the absolute suppression of his pheromones by another day. Damn it, he surely enjoyed himself, didn't he? I pulled out my phone, the latest message from Lu Jinshi catching my eye. "Bro, I'm off to find true love. See you around." My knuckles cracked ominously. "Lu Jinshi, if I catch you, I swear I'll flay you alive. When next we meet, if I don't strip him of his skin, I'll change my surname." In the private room, I sat with my long legs crossed, sipping a drink in mild agitation. An omega climbed onto my waist, occasionally glancing at my marred glands, finally mustering the courage to ask, "Is it a house cat or a wild cat that left those marks on young Master Lu?" Unpleasant memories flooded my mind, and I replied curtly, "A dog." The omega's eyes dimmed momentarily but quickly returned to normal. "Young Master Lu has never allowed anyone to touch him here. What sort of dog would be so wild as to leave such marks?" I raised an eyebrow, playfully nibbling on his earlobe. "What, do you wish to bite?" The little omega's expression shifted, leaning against my shoulder. "I wouldn't dare, young Master Lu." I arched an eyebrow. "You wouldn't dare?" I lifted my chin and pointed to the omega beside me, my slightly inebriated gaze shimmering with a light smile. "Then go ahead and bite." The omega, startled by my invitation, eagerly clambered onto my neck, gently sinking his teeth into my collarbone, leaving fresh, vivid love bites atop the existing marks. I closed my eyes, slowly exhaling, calming my restless heart. At that moment, the door to the private room was forcefully kicked open with a resounding bang. I opened my eyes and glanced outside. Huasi stood at the threshold, his expression dark and radiating an icy aura. Even little O in my arms couldn't help but shiver. Upon seeing him, a familiar ache began to throb at my rear. Yet, the facade of maintaining appearances could not be neglected. My hands casually rested on the sofa as I lazily lifted my gaze to meet his, making no effort to conceal the hickeys adorning my neck. "Ah, General Hua, to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" Huasi strode in with purpose, his gaze momentarily faltering upon noticing the marks on my neck. His eyes then drifted downwards, landing on the hand cradling little O. This time, the frostiness in his demeanor completely melted into ashes. Everyone, out. No one in the entire district was unfamiliar with Huasi's face. Little O in my arms jolted and fled as if propelled by a spring. I couldn't help but emit a soft tch at the emptiness in my embrace. Leaning back against the sofa, I tilted my head to look at him. "General Hua, It appears you've mistaken your destination. Jinshi is still quite young and sensitive. If you were to scare him off, I might not be able to locate him again. If you seek Lu Jinshi, I regret to inform you that you shall be disappointed. Turn left upon exiting, and do not let the door hit you on your way out. Huasii pronounced my name with a chilling deliberation. Lu Wang. I am not so oblivious as to lose track of whether I am with an alpha or an omega. I fell silent for a moment, gazing up at him with a smirk that danced on the edge of a laugh. So, are you still unsatisfied? Huasii fell into an extended silence. I observed his expression, as though I had just shared the most ludicrous joke. Propping my forehead on my hand, I taunted, Huasii, do take a good look. I am indeed an alpha. Do you think you are worthy of sleeping with me? Suddenly, he raised his leg, wedging it between mine. Lu Wang, there is no need to provoke me. I possess ample means to ensure your submission. He seized my hands and pinned me back against the sofa, yet I felt little fear. Instead, I smirked mockingly. You wish to share a bed with me? Very well, kneel and beg me to take you, and I might oblige. The atmosphere instantly grew tense, yet Huasii broke into an unexpected laugh, one filled with ire. Should I ever spot you in a place like this again, I will have the vice squad sweep you straight into custody. I toyed with the tie that hung loosely around his neck, whispering softly into his ear. You find me unclean, yet aren't you also enjoying? Huasii crushed his lips against mine with a fervor that felt like retribution, pouring all of his frustration and desire into that kiss, leaving me unable to push him away despite my struggles. Then, he stood up, casting a cold glance at the soldiers peeking in from the doorway, whose previously mocking expressions transformed into wide-eyed astonishment. We leave. 08 in the stairwell. Chinyu hunched over, smiling ingratiatingly as he lit a cigarette for me. As the smoke curled upwards, I leaned against the window, quietly listening to Chinyu's boastful tales. Young Master Lu, as expected, has a way of getting things done. 3 full crates of firearms, and they can be transported even within Huasi's jurisdiction. Chinyu lowered his voice, leaning closer to my ear. The 2 million in final payment has already been transferred to your account, young Master Lu. I smirked. It seems General Qin knows how to speak, far more eloquently than some frigid faces. Chinyu chuckled heartily. Young Master Lu is young and impetuous. Do not stoop to Huasi's level. I held the cigarette, my words slightly slurred. When do you plan to make your move? My directness caught Chinyu off guard for a moment, yet after a brief pause, he spoke. On the day of the election, the district's defenses will be at their weakest. A strong assault would. I scoffed softly, interrupting him with an air of indifference. TSK, if I were you, I wouldn't be so foolish. Chinyu blinked in surprise before forcing a smile. Then, what insights does young Master Lu possess? I glanced out the window, where a tall figure stood beneath the dim glow of the streetlights, clad in a black trench coat that melded seamlessly with the encroaching night. Upon noticing my gaze, he lifted his eyes to meet mine, our stares clashing with palpable intensity. I averted my gaze, turning back to Chinyu. Huasii is no fool. Even if I were to facilitate the transport of those 3 crates of firearms, he is well aware of what lies within his territory. His inaction does not stem from ignorance. Rather, he is likely calculating the right moment for you to act, waiting to ensnare your forces all at once. General Qin, if I were in your position, I would keep the guns close. Only when the opponent is unaware of your timing can you seize the initiative in negotiations. Stepping out of the stairwell, the butler draped a trench coat over my shoulders. I crushed the remnants of my cigarette and discarded it into the trash bin at the entrance. The 3 crates of firearms had been stamped with Huasi's private seal, the approval granted during my escape from the Hor residence. Though Huasii had not pursued the matter afterward, it did not imply his ignorance. Thus, it felt akin to an unspoken agreement, a sort of default payment for services rendered. Both Huasii and I tacitly chose to remain silent on the matter. The butler approached me, hesitating slightly. Young master, do you truly intend to collaborate with General Qin? Do you believe Qin you can shake Huasi's foundation? Ha, shake? I have never entertained such a notion. A trace of derision crossed my features. An ant shaking a great tree. How laughably presumptuous. The butler appeared perplexed. Then why would you go out of your way to advise him? I merely think that Huasii has held this generalship far too effortlessly over the years. I flicked the ash from my fingers. Causing him a bit of trouble seems a delightful endeavor. Creating a nuisance for Huasii might prompt him to focus his thoughts on more pressing matters, rather than fixating on my rear. I lifted my gaze across the street to Huasii, who stood tall beneath the streetlight, his expression placid, betraying no emotion. I naturally approached him. General Hua? Huasii remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. Qin Yu is not a good person. You should limit your interactions with him. I shrugged, somewhat exasperated. General Hua, your words are quite amusing. Businessmen are, after all, drawn to where the profits lie. Besides, we powerless businessmen must find someone to lean on, or else. Huasii lowered his gaze, his beautiful lashes fluttering slightly. If you seek support, why not come to me? I chuckled lightly, drawing closer to him and exhaling a wisp of smoke toward his ear. What are you offering to give me special treatment? The iron-fisted General Hua had surprisingly inquired why I didn't seek his assistance directly. What might that imply? A transaction of power and desire? Or perhaps a long-term relationship akin to that of a kept lover? Huasii did not respond but turned his head away, pressing his lips into a thin line. Smoke less. It's detrimental to your health. Very well. I laughed softly, nibbling on his earlobe, watching as it flushed a deep crimson. To have General Hua personally grant me special treatment is indeed a rare privilege. When Huasun saw me in the living room, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Sister-in-law, you truly have my brother wrapped around your little finger. The last one who deceived him is now 6 feet under, with grass growing 3 meters high over their grave. Only you could swindle both wealth and affection and emerge unscathed. I remained non-committal, replying, Oh, is that so? The enthusiastic Mr. Huasun continued to offer his suggestions. However, I believe that singing conquer might be somewhat challenging, considering my brother is a fine individual, but his pitch leaves much to be desired. Perhaps you might consider having him sing 2 tigers instead? Before I could respond, I heard Huasi's voice. You enjoy singing? I shall book a private room for you with a 24-hour continuous loop, no pauses allowed. I'll have someone keep an eye on you. Huasun lamented. Ah, then. Huasii turned his gaze toward me. Come in. In the study, Huasii had loosened his collar, with remnants of my kisses still visible on his collarbone. Weariness etched across his face. He inquired, What do you think of Qin Yu? I leaned casually against the window, gazing outside. Just a short-sighted fool. What has he done to surprise you? Huasii rested his forehead on his hand. He has shown remarkable restraint, refraining from any underhanded tactics during the election. I casually remarked, it seems he possesses some intellect, perhaps he has finally come to his senses. Suddenly enlightened? I begged to differ. Huasii finally lifted his eyes to meet mine. Would you care to hear my speculation? I regarded him, my expression impassive. Huasi's gaze lingered on me as he absently tapped his finger on the table. Someone is guiding him from behind. He seemed to seek something in my reaction, but I merely averted my gaze, replying, Oh. Huasii chose not to pursue the topic further. Instead, he unexpectedly asked me, Lu Wang, do you love me? I met his gaze with a detached expression, retorting, Huasii, given our current relationship, discussing love seems rather absurd. Engaging in a romantic relationship with Huasii was the height of folly. Moreover, the bond between alphas was as fragile as paper. Intelligent individuals, once they attain their desires, retreat. Yet what was this moment? I desired to toy with his affections, to exact revenge for the humiliation he inflicted upon me. And he, fully aware of my intentions, seemed to relish the situation. Huasii pulled me closer, forcing my legs to kneel against his abdomen. He then leaned down, supporting my waist, kissing his way down my body. Lu Wang, you may scheme against me, but never betray me. I smirked mockingly, wrapping my arms around his waist. I shall never betray you. Suddenly, Huasi's phone rang. He released me and turned to answer the call. I had no knowledge of what was said on the other end. When Huasii returned, he simply stated, I need to step out, before hastily leaving. I lay back in the chair he had just vacated, feeling inexplicably restless. Just then, my phone rang, and the caller ID displayed Qin Yu. His voice came through the line. Lu Xiao, you truly have a knack for foresight. Huasi's men are indeed lying in wait, eager for me to fall into their trap. I've organized a celebration banquet. You must attend. I languidly stretched, the soreness from yesterday still fresh in my memory. I'm not particularly inclined to go. I outright rejected his invitation, but Qin Yu remained unfazed. Lu Xiao, at least do me the courtesy of granting me this favor. Our future business dealings depend on it. I glanced out the window, observing the soldiers patrolling in front of Hua's residence, guarding it meticulously. A wry smile crept onto my face as I acquiesced. As you wish, General Qin. Though I moved freely within the Hua residence, the reality was that Huasii did not trust me. I was still half confined. But such tricks could hardly restrain me. I twisted the bedsheet into a rope, securing it to the window, and climbed down. An Omega awaited me at the back door of the restaurant. Upon seeing me, they rushed forward, wrapping their arms around my waist. Lu Xiao. The lingering pain in my abdomen flared at the sudden contact, and I couldn't help but inhale sharply. The Omega's gaze flickered, a hint of confusion in their eyes. Lu Xiao, what is wrong? I swallowed my discomfort and casually diverted the conversation. It's nothing. Where's Qin Yu? The Omega did not press further. General Qin is inside with esteemed guests. I'm here to escort you in. As I entered the banquet hall, I realized I had made a grave miscalculation. Who else could warrant the presence of General Qin himself but the treacherous Qin Yu? He had set me up at this very moment. I lifted my eyes to the person seated beside Qin Yu, who in turn looked up just as I did. Upon seeing me, a flicker of shock crossed his features, quickly morphing into a grimace of barely contained fury, before settling into an icy indifference. Unperturbed, Qin Yu greeted me, directing me to sit beside him. Lu Xiao, over here. I crossed my legs as I settled beside him. General Hua. What a coincidence. Hua Xiao's eyelids flickered slightly, but he remained impassive. How ludicrous, how ironic. Just moments ago, I had whispered sweet nothings to him, vowing never to betray, and now I was at his rival's celebration banquet, conspiring on how to bring about his downfall. I sat close enough to him that, with a mere shift, I could lean against his side. I gently whispered into his ear, "It seems General Hua is in a rather foul mood. Shall I find you a little Omega to ease your spirits?" Hua Xi, finally pushed to his limit by my relentless provocation, lowered his voice menacingly. "Lu Wang, you truly have guts." Then, right in front of Qin Yu, he seized me, dragging me forcefully into the car. The vehicle sped back to the Hua residence, where he nearly threw me onto the bed. He secured my hands with a silver chain, the sound of my struggling wrists clinking against the chain ringing sharply in the air. "Didn't you say you would bear me a child? Now show me." My back hit the bed with a jolt, and I gritted through the pain, retorting, "Hua Xi, are you out of your mind? I'm an alpha. How can I give you a child?" Hua Xi's eyes glimmered with a faint red hue, his heated breath cascading over my glands. It was as if the repressed emotions within him had erupted in a fevered frenzy, bordering on madness. "Surely you know there exists a reagent. It can transform an alpha into an omega, allowing for marking and the possibility of conception." A singular thought raced through my mind. Hua Xi has lost his sanity. Not only was that illegal, but I gritted my teeth and snapped, "Hua Xi, that reagent has only a 30 success rate. The remaining 70 either results in becoming a beta or permanent gland damage. If you seek a child, find an omega. There are plenty willing to bear children for you in this district. Don't come to me." Hua Xi's gaze darkened, his fingertip brushing over my lips. "Lu Wang, I offered you a chance. You promised you would never betray me." Hua Xi, like a madman, fervently gnawed at my glands, forcefully and futilely injecting pheromones into me again and again. I trembled violently beneath him, my fingertips turning pale from exertion as they curled tightly. Perhaps he had disguised himself too well before, causing me to nearly forget Hua Xi's true nature as a lunatic. From the very beginning, I should never have provoked him. He was akin to a demon from hell, intent on pulling me down into an endless abyss alongside him. I awoke to the acrid scent of disinfectant. My head throbbed painfully as I propped myself up, surveying my surroundings. Was this a hospital? Instinctively, I pressed on my glands. Thankfully, I was still an alpha. Hua Xi had not yet descended into madness to that extent. Upon seeing that I had regained consciousness, Lu Jinshi rushed to my side. "Brother, you're awake?" I spoke in a low voice. What happened to me? Only then did I realize how hoarse and dry my voice had become. Lu Jinshi discreetly glanced at my lower half before quickly averting his gaze. Stammering, "I don't know what happened. The Hua residence notified me to come and collect you. But the doctor said you need to exercise more restraint. If this happens again, next time you might end up in the ICU." I fell silent, closing my eyes. In the past, when I had followed my uncles into bloodshed, I had never once set foot in a hospital. I never imagined that my first visit would be due to such a reason. I would rather have remained unconscious. Death would be preferable. Instinctively, I raised my hand to seek a cigarette, only to find myself clad in a patient-esque gown. It dawned on me that I was still in the hospital, and I could only impatiently pinch my fingertips together. "Where's Hua Xi?" Lu Jinshi shook his head. "I don't know. Hua Xi hasn't come to see you even once." At this, Lu Jinshi displayed a hint of indignation. Brother, Huasii is too ruthless. He just uses you and tosses you aside. I remained silent, feeling the familiar wave of weakness surging within me once more. I laboriously lifted my hand, which was connected to N4, to rub my throbbing forehead. Lu Jinshi pondered for a moment, then said, "But I don't think that General Hua is the type to abandon someone after using them." Suddenly, he appeared to have an epiphany. Could it be that he doesn't care for you because, brother, you didn't satisfy him enough? Is this even human language? I rolled my eyes in exasperation. I've ended up in the hospital, and he is still not satisfied? Honestly, how could he be anything but satisfied? Lu Jinshi supported his chin with his hands. That's true. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he slapped his thigh. Could it be that you were so amazing that you made him end up in the hospital too? Is it too late to sell this brother off now? Huasii did indeed end up in the hospital. But it was not due to pleasure. He was genuinely injured. 3 crates of firearms that had entered our territory fell into the hands of the rebel army. The rebels, filled with hatred for the government, acted in a crazed manner, making the government wary of taking action against these desperate individuals. On the way Huasii brought me to the hospital, the rebels launched a surprise attack, obliterating the entire vehicle with gunfire and explosives. I sat on the hospital bed, my emotions in turmoil as I listened to the steward's report. If it weren't for General Hua shielding you with his body, you would be the one in the ICU now. Also, I raised my eyes and spoke irritably. What else? The steward pointed to the no-smoking sign on the wall, then seamlessly took the cigarette but I had been holding. Young Master Lu, smoking is prohibited in the hospital. When I appeared at Qin Yu's office door, he greeted me with a smile. Young Master Lu, you! I raised my revolver, the dark muzzle aimed at his forehead. His voice faltered. What is this, young Master Lu? I spoke coldly. You violated the rules of the underworld. The rules of the underworld dictate that firearms, being special commodities, are not to be resold. Without waiting for his reaction, I pressed the revolver against his forehead. However, the gun merely emitted a puff of smoke without firing a bullet. I lifted the gun, casually blowing away the gunpowder. It seems you are fortunate. Qin Yu let out a sigh of relief, but just as he stood up, the cold muzzle pressed against his temple once more. I just don't know if you will be so lucky this time. His expression finally shifted. Lu Wang, have you gone mad? In the underworld, 1 bullet determines life and death. You've broken the rules. Who would dare trade with you? I lowered my gaze, a chill in my eyes as if I were gazing upon a corpse. Indeed, in the underworld, 1 bullet determines life and death. However, this one is a personal vendetta. It was evident that this time, Qin Yu would not be so fortunate. A bullet pierced through his skull, leaving behind a gaping wound. Qin Yu's blood splattered onto me, the tainted liquid streaming down my face and into my throat. I closed my eyes, then turned towards the crucifix hanging in his office. I traced a cross over my chest and bowed reverently. Amen. Ever since injuring my hand, I had seldom touched a gun. But that did not mean I was easy to provoke. The leader of the rebel army, before he died, still stared wide-eyed, collapsing straight down. In his final moments, he looked at the multiple bullet wounds on me in disbelief. Madman. I staggered to my feet, using my fingers to wipe away the blood frothing from my mouth. The tobacco I had been holding was reduced to a mere stub. The night was deep as water, my hands stained with blood. Dragging my battered body out of the rebel stronghold, I raised my eyes and saw Huasii, his long black cloak wrapped around his waist, leaning against the car behind him. Standing in the night, he nearly melded into the darkness itself. I staggered a few steps and collapsed into his embrace, murmuring, Hua, you're still alive? Huasii. He reached out, gathering my broken body into his arms. Vivid red blood stained his collar, spreading across his meticulously pressed clothes in large splotches. He lowered his gaze, his eyes brimming with heartache. Why didn't you leave? I raised my hand, almost in a retaliatory manner, pressing the cigarette butt against his chest. Huasii let out a pained sound as flesh tore open. The wound on his chest, barely healed, oozed blood soaking through the bandage. I gritted my teeth, sighing softly. Hua, falling for you is truly the most unfortunate thing of my life. Huasii, I absolutely hate you. Unable to hold on any longer, darkness enveloped me, and I fainted completely in his embrace. Lu Jinshi looked at my disheveled state, astonished. Brother, your romance is truly passionate. You've ended up in the hospital twice already. Even though General Hua is a top-tier alpha, with your speed of entering the hospital, you simply cannot endure such a lifestyle. Before I could retort, the doctor who came to change the dressing added a sting to his words. Indeed, young people must learn moderation. Next time you get in bed, leave the gun behind. It can easily go off. I thought, wait, have you misunderstood something? I let out a mournful cry. Indeed, love is a double-edged sword, injuring both body and heart, and tarnishing one's reputation. I shall never again endure the bitter pangs of love. Lu Jinshi scratched his head and remarked, Brother, with your reputation, does it even have the potential to worsen? It was never particularly good to begin with, was it? I gritted my teeth and pronounced his name with disdain. Lu, Jin, sure. Suddenly, a light cough echoed from outside the door. I lifted my gaze and saw Huasii standing quietly at the threshold. Time seemed to freeze at that moment as I looked at him, his beautiful pupils reflecting my figure. Lu Jinshi seized the opportunity to slip out, leaving only Huasii and me in the room. My hand lay casually on my bent leg as I lowered my eyes and offered a self-deprecating smile. What? I've come to realize that I cannot live without you. You must find me quite absurd, considering I have a penchant for omegas. After hearing of your injury, I acted like a madman. Does that not count as a blunder resulting in total loss? Huasii enfolded me in his embrace and sighed softly. It is not absurd. From beginning to end, it is I who cannot bear to be apart from you, the one who yearns for you. I have long since surrendered to you, Lu Wang. Thank you for choosing to remain by my side. And thank you for pausing amidst the desolation of my life to appreciate this barren landscape. End of the main text. Epilogue. A decade later. During a high-level meeting, a consumption record suddenly flashed on the screen featuring General Hua. Mr. Hua, your bank card ending in 5031 was charged 100 yuan at Tianshang Renjian. A moment of silence fell over the room as everyone turned their gaze towards Huasii, seated at the head of the table. Huasii's eyes remained downcast, seemingly oblivious to the message. His long, elegant fingers twirled the pen in his hand, his expression inscrutable. However, the executives below could not help but engage in hushed whispers. I say, General Hua is truly remarkable. Even with his own house on fire, he remains unfazed. How can he endure this? Yet, the more senior executives had already seen through it all. What do you know? This is merely the calm before the storm. Just wait. I foresee General Hua personally taking action, and that individual will surely regret it. Huasii cast a cold glance towards the murmuring executives, tapping his index finger leisurely against the table. What are you staring at? Continue. No sooner had he spoken than another consumption record popped up on the screen. Mr. Hua, your bank card ending in 5031 was charged 100,000 yuan at Tianshang Renjian. Huasii set his pen down, a chilling smile gracing his lips. Heh. The casualness of Huasii's laughter sent shivers down the spines of the executives. They had never witnessed such a terrifying aura from him, even during the siege and pillaging by the rebel forces. Huasii stood up and quickly departed. Apologies, I must attend to some personal matters. When he arrived, I was in a private room at Tianshang Renjian. A lovely little omega was playfully entertaining the omega cub in my arms, eliciting delighted giggles from the little one. Young Master Lu, is this your child? He is truly beautiful, resembling you quite a bit. I opened my mouth, ready to speak, but when I raised my gaze, I found Huasii standing at the door. His eyes fell upon the omega cub in my arms, and for the first time, a look of bewilderment flickered in his typically composed gaze. Whose is this? I proudly lifted the little cub in my arms and looked up at him. I gave birth to him. Isn't he that impressive? Huasii lowered his head to examine the cub's face, which bore a striking resemblance to mine, his expression darkening ominously. Who fathered him? Did he really take this seriously? Could it be that a man consumed by jealousy possesses negative intelligence? Even if he doubts me, surely he must trust himself. I had spent an entire year without straightening my back. Where would I find the strength to bear him an omega cub outside? Perhaps sensing the unfriendly atmosphere, the omega cub squirmed restlessly in my arms. Any other omega cub would have surely cried at the imposing presence of the general, yet this one was remarkably unfazed. Instead, he reached out his chubby little hands towards Huasii. Daddy, hug. Huasii's face paled, and he hesitantly stroked the omega cub's small face. Is he truly your child? Lu Jinshi, who had been watching the spectacle unfold, finally could no longer contain himself. No, are you both out of your minds? That's my son, my son. I say, brother, say something. I rested my chin on my hand, tapping the remnants of red wine on the table. Oh, the wine my son just shattered was a bottle of Romani Conti, worth 100,000. It was paid for using Huasi's card. Would you prefer to settle it in cash or by card? Lu Jinshi swallowed hard and, without hesitation, sold out his own son. Well, we are all family. Calling him my son or your son is rather sentimental. If you like, I can have this little fellow change his surname to Hua tomorrow. I handed the Omega Cub back to Lu Jinshi. Overcome by inebriation, I nestled into Huasi's embrace. Do you regret it? Perhaps it was because I had deceived him into believing I would bear him a little Alpha or Omega. Over the years, Huasi had developed an immense obsession with the idea of having children. Though he had never expressed it, the envy in his gaze upon seeing a child was unmistakable. Huasi lowered his eyes and let out a faint, almost imperceptible sigh. But Lu Wang, have you ever contemplated that from the very beginning? What I truly desired was only you. You are the sole variable that has intruded upon the orderliness of my life. You are my star. You are the most beautiful accident in my life. The story concludes here. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next tale.